What is the craziest or most messed up act you have done or would do? Story 1. So, I was having unlimited soup salad and breadsticks at Olive Garden once, and my waitress was stunning. We flirted a bit, and eventually she came down and sat at my booth with me. We talked and giggled a bit. I gave her a good tip and put my number on the receipt. For some reason, she actually called me. After her shift, she asked if we could meet up. Since she didn't have a car, I swung by to pick her up. When she got in, she was carrying a big order of breadsticks, a full dinner-sized chicken Alfredo, and one of those weekday lunch special paninis. She smiled and said, "I got us some dinner. Want to go back to my place?" I said, "Sure, why not?" We drove to her apartment, and the whole ride there was filled with playful flirting. By the time we pulled up, the vibe had definitely started to turn a little intimate. We got inside and started having a great time. In the kitchen, she grabbed some forks and napkins, then sat down next to me. We were digging into the food when her hands started to linger on my thigh. By then, I was already pretty up and excited, and she definitely notices. Next thing I know, right in the middle of dinner, she gave me a blowy. I was just sitting there frozen between shock and pure pleasure. She glanced up and said, "Don't mind me, keep eating." So, there I was, working through a mountain of breadsticks while getting a blowy. Honestly, it was one of the most unforgettable meals of my life: soup, breadsticks, and, well, dessert. To be fair, I gave her more than a tip by the end of the night, and finished on her apron. She even still had half of her work uniform on too. I can go to Olive Garden without soloing one out in the bathroom anymore. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. Not sure if this belongs here, but I accidentally called a black girl with the N-words when we were doing it on my 20th birthday. I remember we were getting intimate, and she said, "I know it's your birthday, but it's time for my favorite position," and she proceeded to turn around and get on Scooby-Doo style. I was really in the mood and emotions were escalating. Everything goes dark after that for a second. This is probably the instant where I said it. Next thing I know, she's furious and gets ready to leave. Then I'm following her out my door, all bare, asking her to come back, completely oblivious to what just happened. I didn't know the events of that night until months later when we were at the same party, and she was giving me dirty looks. She told some of our mutual friends what I had called her, and none of them believed her, because I'm such a nice guy, and they told me that she just told them a crazy story. I responded to my friends that it probably did happen, and we laughed about it. I do feel bad about it though. I couldn't imagine what it must be like to be black. Allow a white guy to spend time with you after like a week or two of pursuit, and then in the middle of it, get called the N-word. Story 3. So, like 2 Halloweens ago, I ended up at, yep, you guessed it, a Halloween party. Now, I'm the least creative person on earth when I'm sober, so of course I had zero costume ideas. Total blank. Last minute, in a full panic, I grabbed this cheap cow costume from some random party store, the kind with the big floppy udders and everything. Fast forward a few hours. I'm drunk as a skunk. Well, a cow. Mooed my way through the party like a legend. At some point in the night, the booze kicked in and my creativity finally showed up, sort of. I decided one of the udders needed a special upgrade, so naturally, I cut one off and replaced it with my actual dong. Then I just casually walked around the party, acting like everything was completely normal. It didn't take long for people to notice. Needless to say, 2 girls, one of them cute, and the other fresh off getting kicked in the face by a rogue cow, not me, decided I needed to be milked. This is now one of those costumes that I rinse, lather, and repeat with. Story 4. Banging my turd did not go as expected. So, I was stationed in the Middle East in a drilling operation. Let me tell you, there are very few women field engineers in petroleum, and none of them get stationed in the Middle Eastern interior. Now, I'm not gay, though I hold nothing against it, so it was hard to find ways to get off. They have the most epic corn filters you can imagine. So, sharing a bunkhouse with 25 engineers, the only private time you get is in the bathroom stalls. Even the shower was communal. So, you don't want to seem like you crap all the time, and the only chance you get to solo off is when you're taking a dump to avoid suspicion. Eventually, I developed this subconscious link between crapping and reaching the big O, and it got to the point where I couldn't do one without the other. This went on for the first month of my 3-month rotation. and the obvious thoughts started cropping up. So one day I thought, screw it, it's the only warm, soft thing I get to be alone with ever. So I took one of my bigger logs and started to just slowly bang it. Then the smell hit. I kid you not, I projectile vomited on myself, the turd, my legs, and was just sitting there, dong covered in crap, vomit all over me, dripping into the bowl, unable to move for fear of spilling anything. I took off my shirt and put it between me and the toilet. I then slowly rolled over without lifting my body so the crap vomit mixture squeezed into my shirt. I quickly dumped the bundle into the trash can and hopped in the shower. From that point, it was just as simple as pretending I forgot my towel. Story 5. I have a profile on seekingarrangement.com and find broke-ass college girls who think it would be cool to have a sugar daddy, but haven't actually engaged in S-work before. I'm a young, fairly fit guy, unlike most of the men on that site, and I talk in a friendly, casual way with them and build trust. I meet them for a drink and get them on board with the idea of being my sugar baby and spending 2 nights a week with me. When I actually get them in the bedroom, I slowly start escalating way out of their comfort zone, because these girls have never done this before. They're under the false assumption that they have to do what they're asked. They feel a sort of obligation, since they're not familiar with the norms of paid intimacy. I have given most of these girls their first facial, and many of them their first backdoor experience. And when I am in charge taking the lead, looking into their eyes, I say I've never done this before. They say really? And I say yeah, I've never turned a girl into an S-worker before. This is pretty hard-hitting emotionally, since I've deliberately avoided this word until then. Finding the girls who are comfortable with the idea, and seeing the shame and regret on their face is what puts me over the edge and makes me reach the big O, and sometimes they wriggle off of me in disgust as I'm ending. I also hide a keychain camera and regularly watch reruns of my handiwork. I should probably be in therapy. Story 6. I spent a night with a very obese lady. I was high on powder for the second and last time. I know this doesn't excuse my decision-making, but it explains my severe need for wild wiggling. She gave me a blowy while she sat on the toilet doing her business. Then we went to her bed. I had gross, unprotected sesh with her twice. Then she passed out while laying across my chest. She was snoring a lot, but I was on that pill and got another stiffy. Her big jugs were on top of my dong. I started to wiggle it on her to wake her up, but she was out like a light. I began banging her jugs while she snored. I knew it was wrong, but I kept going. Eventually, she woke up and I stopped. We rocked it one more time, and then we both passed out. She gave me a ride home in her Suburban the next morning. My friends had a half-fake, half-real intervention with me. A few days later, dealing with my sexcapades with scallywags. It didn't work. Story 7. This isn't so much slutty as it is shameless. I was smushing with my ex-girlfriend in her parents' basement. Her grandmother was in town and decided she needed to use the basement bathroom at 3:30 in the morning for some reason. She walks downstairs to see her granddaughter getting intimate with me, Scooby-Doo style, by the nice blonde pale boy she had just eaten dinner with earlier. My ex didn't notice Gram on account of her facing the other way, moaning into a pillow. Her grandma stood there stunned, waiting for a reaction. So I shrugged with one arm and mouthed, "Sorry." But I didn't stop because I didn't want my girlfriend to know. Next morning her grandma acted like it didn't happen, and my ex was none the wiser. Raises mead horn in gratitude to Odin. Story 8. Okay, this is a bit crazy, but it belongs here. I once met a chick who was kind of quiet and stuff, bookwormy, you know the deal, but I'm kinda into chicks with glasses. I took her out for the usual and she invited me back to her place. This was going well. Usually they wait a bit to put out. When the conversation turned intimate, she confessed to me she has something of a weird fantasy. She liked a certain thing and would put out for me if I did this thing for her. It turned out the thing was her watching me take a dookie into her toilet tank while she soloed herself. She started screaming louder, wetter, and paralytically screamed every time she heard it go plop into the tank. She didn't let me wipe and told me to bang her right then and there. So I did as I was told, with her smelling the dookie cake I just left. Weirdest bang ever. There was, for obvious reasons, no second date. Story 9. A friend of mine goes to university out of state. It's a small town, small enough that anything that happens spreads before you can even get home in the morning. There's this girl, apparently a 10 out of 10 in real life, and a 12 out of 10 at school. She's talking with this guy, both of them crazy drunk, when she invites him upstairs. The first thing the guy notices is that the bed is covered in saran wrap. At that moment, he gives her a doubtful look. She shushes him, puts his hand on her chesticles, and keeps going. Then, while they're getting all ready, she pulls a small piece of plastic out of her back pocket. "It'd be really hot for me if you wore this bead." The bead was small, the girl was hot, he stuck it in and stuck it in. About halfway through, in the throes of passion, she asks him to inform her when he's about to be done. Our hero, overcome by alcohol and hot woman, agrees. When the time comes, and he informs her about his ending, she sits up, reaches around him, and rips out the bead. He proceeds to volcano crap all over the bed. Stammering, he stands up and explains nothing like that has ever happened before. He's in the middle of an apology when she puts her finger to his lips and shushes him again. "You were perfect," she coos in his ear as she starts rubbing it over her body. He, not knowing what else to do, punches her in the face and leaves. The entire school knew before he'd gotten the smell off. Story 10. So, a long time ago, I was at a friend's house for Christmas. He was going to be announcing his engagement to his parents and in-laws. So much rejoicing was expected. During the party before the announcement, our dealer shows up with a rather attractive, normal-looking girl. He introduces everyone, and nothing seems out of the ordinary. Then she starts pulling us to the side, asking to get her up. Well, our dealer seemed to have left, and her badgering for drugs was getting more intense. Myself and the groom-to-be's brother were tasked with getting rid of her. When we pulled her aside to ask her nicely to calm down, she then said if we got her high, anything we wanted was on the table. Obviously, we modified the plan. According to her, there was only one place she knew that could score at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve. It was in one of those parts of town that people know about, but no one ever really wants to be there. After an hour or so, we find this guy, get her taken care of, and decide for some stupid reason that we should finish up at my place. Well, he takes his turn on the way to my place, and when I get back, I'm tired. She seems out of it, and I'm not in the mood. So I drop her on the couch and get in my bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up to find her using my fist violently while crying and moaning this haunting sound that I will never escape. She's like, "Please don't stop. I don't understand." No crap, neither did I. So, I try to get away, and she begs me not to. Anyway, when she was done with everything, I took her to 7-Eleven and gave her a bus ticket and went home to burn the sheets. Story 11. The time I got wine drunk with my boyfriend and then he deep face banged me. I puked magenta Malbec chunks all over the boyfriend's dong, but still he kept going. It happened 2 more times, no cleanup before we swapped to my downtown area, then back door did towel off the puke before though. Or the time we did an SA fantasy outdoors, I think I would up with chiggers, but it was worth it. Or the lollipop game we've played a time or two, 1 dum-dum in the downtown area, 1 in the back door. Then I have to guess, based on taste, which dum-dum was in which area. Oh, actually I think the most out there, or at least most intense, was the time I asked him to slap while doing it. Hard enough and frequently enough that I started crying. I was sobbing while he pounded me like no tomorrow. It was so cathartic and intense, it felt like an out-of-body experience. I sobbed uncontrollably the whole time we banged. I have a lot of crazy banging stories, but I think the last time was the most intense for me. Story 12. That I've done? I'd say the devil's three-way. A friend of mine and I had spent all summer joking about how we should totally do it. Late in the summer, he brings this girl he's trying to nail to a party. I recognize her as a girl that came into the store I work all the time, and I start talking to her while she's texting my friend across the room. All of a sudden he gets this little smile on his face, and she gets this really excited look on his face. He looks up from his phone and goes, "Really?" and she violently shakes her head. Yes. This was when I started to clue in. So I text my friend asking what's up. He texts back, "Rig post, pig roast," another name for the devil's three-way. So, our other friend, sober one, drives us all back to my place. On the way, the girl confides that she actually only came into my store every 2 weeks to look at me. Little creepy, but she was pretty hot. So I was down. We got back to my place, go downstairs, and we do everything, drinking beers the whole time, so we didn't just high-five over her. We cheersed. It gets to a point where we DP'd her. We all shared a laugh, and another drink, then went our separate ways for the night. Now, given this was the summer before going off to university, I was living at home with my parents. I've always wondered what would have happened if one of my parents had taken the moment when I was at the bottom of the pile to come downstairs to see what all the noise was about. Also, my friend and I couldn't make eye contact without laughing for a full week after this. Totally would do it again. Story 13. I had some pretty hot time with an old fool-around friend at a Halloween party, while dressed as the Mask. I looked more like Dorian, to be honest, full facial latex, green painted head, bald cap, and a zoot suit. She was a half-assed sexy zombie, painted stitches, ripped clothes, lingerie, a few blood spots. She pulled me into the bathroom, saying she needed help finishing her makeup. Next thing I know, we're making out with her perched on the sink. She asked if I'd taste her pie, which I was more than happy to do. After, I positioned her, facing the mirror, and went to Pound Town. She slowed me down, grabbed my dong and guided it to her back door, kept going from there, one hand around her waist, the other holding the door shut because the knob was broken, all while people were trying to get in. Out of 70+ people at the party, we were tying up one of the 2 bathrooms. There was actually a line waiting when we finally came out. This was actually at my friend's house. We threw huge parties there all the time. One of our running jokes was turning banging into a game. Anytime someone was about to make the girl reach the finish line, they'd yell Mortal Kombat, and the rest of the house, roommates and close friends, would shout back, "Finish her." I told my sexy zombie friend about the game, and she was all for it. So yeah, we played Mortal Kombat too. Many laughs were had. Definitely a top 3 night of my life. Story 14. I have 2 stories from my younger years. When I was 19 or 20, I was dating this girl who suggested we invite her best friend over for a 3-score. Good times ensued, and everything seemed great. Later, her friend messaged me online saying how much fun she'd had, but then added that she would have had even more fun if my girlfriend hadn't been there. I told her I wasn't going to cheat, blah blah blah. But eventually, she still convinced me to hang out with her, just as friends. We had a few drinks. Yeah, young and dumb, go figure. And she started taking her clothes off. Then she tells me she's always wanted to try the back door. That was the moment I realized I was going to cheat on my girlfriend. So, we get going. And I decided it's time to try it. I just get started. And then her phone rings. Oh crap, it's my husband. I have to get this. Excuse me? There's a dong in your back door and you're about to take a call from your husband? What the F? So, I'm lying there, listening to her half of the conversation. She's telling her husband she's tired, watching a movie, about to go to bed, and definitely not cheating. Meanwhile, I'm drunk, bored, and still very much inside. In my infinite wisdom, I decide to go for it. I slam myself in. She nearly swallows the phone and abruptly hangs up. Bad reception, maybe? And I just start going to town. It was amazing. She starts to reach the O and in the process pushes me out. The problem was, I wasn't the only thing she pushed out. What followed was a thick, grayish liquid that got everywhere, me, the bed, the pillows. And to top it all off, I was supposed to pick up my girlfriend in just a few hours for breakfast. Still, overall was a decent experience. Would do again. Second story. Some years later, like 3 or so, I was single and hanging out with a bunch of friends at a hotel party. There were maybe 7 guys and 7 girls there. Out of nowhere, this woman in her 30s shows up, wanting to party with us. No idea who she was, where she came from, who let her in, or why she wouldn't leave. She was completely wasted and almost immediately bare, trying to bang every guy there at the same time. The details get a bit fuzzy after that. I remember hearing stuff like, "Oh yeah, Ricky, get that kitty," and then, "That's my shoulder." No clue what was going on exactly. The next morning, we woke up to find her basically in a coma. We tried waking her up, but she wouldn't budge, checked her pulse, it was there. So we just kind of left her there, bare and uncovered in the bed. Then we checked out and pretended none of it ever happened. LOL. Story 15. Well, this was when I was about 19 or 20, so probably about 8 years ago. My buddies and I grew up in Western NY, just outside of Buffalo, and would take weekend trips to Canada for some binge drinking and general debauchery. As the drinking age, there was only 19 and 21 in the US. We would split a hotel room for like 10 of us because we were poor as hell, and we would be so drunk usually that we wouldn't even mind passing out on the floor. While we were bar hopping, this older lady, 30 to 40, maybe, strikes up conversation with us and is generally flirtatious with all of us. She isn't the best-looking woman, so we all kind of ignore her. She follows us to the next 2 bars as we keep drinking, and before the end of the night, I give in. We head back to her hotel room and start going at it. Nothing unusual at first, and I am actually fairly pleased with my decision. After a few minutes, she takes out beads and starts putting them in. I thought it was a little weird, being 19 and fairly inexperienced, but she was really into it, and therefore so was I. I was getting pretty close to the finish line, and I think she could tell. She took the beads and began trying to try them on me. I tried to resist, but I really just wanted to be done, so in they went. Just as I ended, she ripped the beads, and I dookied everywhere. After a night of vigorous drinking, I didn't exactly have 100% control of my bowels. I ran to the bathroom and tried to clean myself the best I could. I decided to head back to my hotel and just shower. I was so embarrassed about what I did that I didn't even want to look at her. I opened the bathroom door and could immediately smell the horrid smell. I grabbed my clothes as fast as I could and bolted for the door. As the door was closing, I got a glimpse of the bed from the hallway lighting, and there I saw the most horrific thing I have ever seen in my life. She was rolling around in it, in complete ecstasy. When I got back to my room, my buddies were all asleep. I hopped into the shower immediately and passed out pretty quickly. I woke up to my friends all laughing. In my hurry the night before, I got poo on my pants and they asked if I crapped my pants. I lied and said I did. I figured it was better than telling them the truth. To this day, they still make fun of me, believing I drunkenly crapped my pants and didn't end up sleeping with the cougar from the bar. Story 16. So, I went to a cabin with a bunch of people I didn't know that much, but within 5 minutes I was play fighting and fooling around with the hottest girl there by far. Everyone went to the hot tub and were goofing off and drinking. One by one the people left the hot tub and eventually we were there alone, and she just jumped at me as soon as the last person went inside. She pulled my dong out, smiled, turned around and sat in my lap, taking it all in. It was an amazing feeling. Well, we started banging at full speed, and I noticed that she was about to reach the end, but something felt off. She was just shaking and clenching, and that's when I realized that she was having a serial O, in a way that a slightest touch sets her off again. And at that moment, her best friend walked in on us. I am not shy in any sense. So while the girl is still spasming there, I stand up, turn around, put up the biggest innocent smile, and just waved her friend. She just ran back inside. We ended up taking another round in the tub, and then moving to the shower. And in the shower, we weren't holding back on any of the noises. A bit more alcohol was consumed, and then we moved to the bedroom. That's when her inhibitions were long gone, and she began biting onto me and then yanking away. At first, I didn't know what to think. Then I started biting back, and after that it turned into a fight-bang play. She would try to bite me. I'd pull her off by the hair, throw her up against the wall so she couldn't bite. But during that bang fest, that lasted a couple of hours, we totally ignored the fact that the window in the small bedroom was closed. The bedroom was steaming hot, condensation on the windows, and we just collapsed on the bed. I managed to reach for the window, opened it, and there we were, just laying on top of all the covers, with a fresh breeze flowing in and occasional snowflakes reaching us. We were literally steaming there, and each snowflake that landed on us was like being touched by something otherworldly. It was amazing. The others complained that no one got any sleep that night because of us. Story 17. I had a threescore with 2 friends, who later argued over who would get me. It lasted for about 2 days, was the most awesome and screwed up bang ever. These days I'm into the au pair catching me soloing off. She loves it and it keeps me excited. Gotta love young pervy women. Edit. Okay? More about the au pair. She's actually a niece of my wife. staying with us who just turned 18. The intimacy in our marriage dried up for various reasons. My wife, I believe, has lovers. I've had girlfriends as well. It's a fairly open marriage now, more complex than that but not relevant. The au pair started coming on to me. It began innocently asking for help with her internet, then progressed to her walking around in skimpy clothes when it was just the two of us at home. I work from home, and my wife is often away. Now I won't bang the au pair. It's bad business, and would piss off my wife. The au pair doesn't want to disrupt the household either, but she's clearly eager to explore. We've settled into this unspoken harmony where she catches me half bare, or I catch her half bare, and we quietly use each other as eye candy. It creates a powerful kind of euphoria, the combination of forbidden behavior and a cute young woman. Actually, my wife already caught us once, and didn't really care too much, so the edge has gone off it a little, and I may change things around. Story 18. Not exactly raunchy, but still freaked me out when I was younger. I was a senior in high school, and had never done anything with a girl past making out. I started talking with this girl in my English class. She seemed like a pretty normal girl, and she had some medical issue. I don't remember what it was, that she would pass out randomly. Anyways, one day after lunch, I was walking with her back to class, and she passed out while walking up the stairs. I caught her mid-fall and carried her to the nurse's office. When she came back to consciousness, I was still carrying her. Needless to say, she wanted me hardcore after that. We ended up talking a lot more, and decided to be boyfriend and girlfriend. Our first date was at her house. She lived about 45 minutes away from my house, and neither of us had our licenses, so her mom picked me up. We got to her house, and started to watch a movie, and then she proceeded to give me my first blowy. After she finished up, we watched the rest of the movie, and talked more about random things. It started to get late, so her mom started driving us home. This is where things got weird real quick. She was apparently still really in the mood from earlier, and she told me she wanted to give me a blowy in the car. We were in the back seat. She did not whisper this. I couldn't believe she just said it out loud with her mom, not even 3 feet away from us. So I said in a hushed tone, "Your mom us right there," and her mom, without missing a beat, said, "I won't look. I promise. I kid you not." I had no idea what to do, so I just said no, and stayed quiet for the rest of the ride. I decided to call it quits with her, because her family was obviously a little whacked. Then I found out about a month later, she was pregnant from some other dude in the school. Dodged a frigging bullet. Story 19. Not too raunchy, but it was screwed up on her part. I blacked out at a party a year ago and woke up on my brother's couch with my shirt unbuttoned, my pants open, and my chest covered in Chick-fil-A sauce. I look to my right and see a girl from my film class. I asked her what happened, and I kid you not, this is her story. She was looking for a bathroom, so she wandered into my brother's room. She finds me there, we talk for a while and end up making out. Apparently, I had gotten someone to get me Chick-fil-A, so they barged in while she was on top, taking charge. Chick-fil-A delivery boy leaves, and she decides to go down on my wishbone. While I was getting the blowy, I started eating my chicken sandwich, and I do usually put Chick-fil-A sauce on it, and apparently I fell asleep mid-blow and dropped the sandwich on my chest. She apparently didn't notice, thinking my eyes were closed because of the euphoria from her atrocious blowy, and banged me while I slept. She finally realized and just passed out next to me. I still think she poured the sauce on me out of anger. Story 20. I'm 20, and just last week I met a 44-year-old man through a website that arranges sugar daddy, sugar baby relationships. We spoke on the phone once before meeting, and got along great. So the next day I drove to his city where we met for lunch. We banged 4 times that day, one of which involved the back door. I left early in the morning, but not without a check. We plan to continue this arrangement for years to come, unless I run into a better offer. He plans to support me financially by helping me with my college loans, rent, and other things that are important to me, like groceries and a yoga membership. He is already planning a trip to Asia and wants to take me to Hawaii in the future. All of this in trade for companionship. Story 21. My ex-girlfriend and I always had a joke that when I did something she really needed, she'd give me a blumpkin. One night we got extremely intoxicated at our local bar's quarter beer night. We get home and I have the gnarliest case of the Hershey squirts. She comes banging on the door asking me if I'm pooping. I told her, yeah. and she barges into the bathroom and gets down and starts giving me a blowy trying to get my lil guy up. I didn't really want her to do it, and I told her that, but she didn't really care. I'm a private pooper. Now let me tell you, the smell was horrid, like rotten eggs and dead carcass. She finally gets me up, but at this point I'm completely done with my crap. I asked her if I could just wipe and continue somewhere else, but she told me no. I was finally done after 10 minutes, and she gulped down the smoothie ever so smoothly. I cleaned myself up and just went to bed. What started as a joke ended up being the raunchiest thing I've ever done. Story 22. I have not done it yet, but I would do anything, and I mean anything, to and for an attractive pre-op trans girl. Problem is, and I live in a small town where there isn't really a community for trans people. I know this might not seem raunchy, but my biggest fantasy right now is taking a girl home from a date and her pulling down her inners to reveal a surprise dong. Doesn't matter the size, color, or shape. So, here's a few things I already have realized before the LGBT community members attempt to educate me again. It's dangerous for a trans girl to do something like this without prior warning and consent, so it will likely never happen. Most trans girls will see this as a fantasy thing and instantly reject me as a chaser because of that fact. It's your lifestyle, not my fantasy. Yes, the fact that I like dong probably means I'm at least bisexual. I realize this. Just because I'm not attracted to men's features doesn't mean I'm not attracted to the dong. Have I ever had a gay experience before? Yes. Do I see trans people as just an object? No, I would happily engage in a relationship with a trans person if our personalities clicked. Love is about people, not the organs that you have. Why did I use a throwaway account? Because my boss knows my Reddit account and he has no business knowing about my intimate life. Story 23. Looking for a casual hookup. I come across a cool-sounding guy who sends a hot pic. He offers to host and tells me to come by at 6:30. I arrive wearing panties, a slip, and stockings under my clothes with a backpack full of makeup and toys. I walk up to the front door and ring the bell. A very cute woman answers. "Oh, you must be Doug's friend," she says. "Come on in, dinner will be ready in 15 minutes. The guy's in the shower, and I'm bugging out. None of this was discussed. I expected a slightly older, less in-shape version of the guy from the pictures, not his wife. Did I mention there are kids? I'm trying not to think too hard about it. We sit down to dinner, and for some reason, I flip on the charm. Shock and improv make a weirdly effective combo. Inside, I feel completely numb and start planning a swift, quiet exit. Doug, wife, and I talk well into the evening about all sorts of topics. Eventually, she gets up and puts the kids to bed while I stare at Doug, trying to decipher why he would do this to me or his wife. I almost come to the irrational conclusion that I am at the wrong house. She excuses herself, saying she needs to get some rest because she has another bun in the oven. I smile and wish her a good night because I really like her. Doug says loudly that we should play some Black Ops and lead me to the room next to both his sleeping wife and conked kids. Then, after turning on the game, he reaches for me and takes my clothings. He tears my inners off, and I squeak a little in fear and confusion. He reached around and held me by my throat and pulled me back as he whispered into my ear, "Shut the F up unless you want to ruin my family." He then pushes my head into the couch cushions. He banged me twice in a row and made me give him a blowy, all the while telling me to be quiet. I'll never do that again because I liked his wife and still feel guilt about the whole night. Making me choose between helping that man cheat on his wife or ousting him to his entire family made me feel a lot of confusing emotions. Despite initially going there to have casual time with a man, I felt sick. Story 24. 1 year into college, I was on break when my high school sweetheart ambushed me by showing up at my place under the guise of we were going to smoke. What she didn't mention was that she brought her new boyfriend with her. She came into my room alone to tell me first, while he waited in the car. There I was, self-conscious, overprotective, and still a little in love with her. So I was not having that crap. I'll admit, I was an asshat. I wasn't about to hang out with the dude who's sleeping with the girl who used to be mine. Yeah, I know she's not mine, but gender stereotypes and media imprinting, sorry. So I just said, screw that, you're gonna have to give me a blowy or something. Much to my surprise, she actually agreed and starts giving me the blowy. It was taking longer than usual, and this kid is literally sitting in the car, 20 yards from my dong in his girlfriend's. So I said, if we just bang real quick, this will go a lot faster. Again, she's down with it, and I get done in a few minutes. This was already bad, but this is where it gets worse. She collects herself, goes and gets her boyfriend, and we all smoke together from the same bong in the room that she and I just banged in. I know it's gotta smell like sweat and smoothie, but she wanted to smoke still. I'm an awful person, I know that, but what I want to know is, did she kiss him when they left and were in the car? That poor fellow. Story 25. When I was 22, I dated this 18-year-old who was crazy as heck in bed and outside of it, but that's another story. I ran out of things to do because she was up for any frigging thing. Here's a quick list off the top of my head. I'll expand on them if anyone wants. Made animal noises and played with each other's necks, shoulders, and pits while we banged. Did it without a protection or BC every time. Did it in her little sister's bed while her stepdad was working on the porch. We could see him through the window. Luckily, he faced away the whole time. Maybe he knew, I don't know. Did it while listening to her parents banging in the next room. They heard us too and told her the next morning to keep it down next time. She'd been SA'd by her father. So, I made her tell me stories of what her father did while I was banging her. Left her on my bed while I went to class for the day. She had soiled the bed by the time I came back. I banged her in it. Before I made her clean it up. She wore a silver heart pendant with a sharp end. A few times while I was pounding her, I grabbed it and used it on her chest. Banged her while her adult sister and cousin laid in a bed across from us, separated only by a sheet. The sister eventually gave the cousin a blowy while we banged, which was an unexpected bonus bit of weirdness. Had her play with the family dog while I banged her. Story 26. Not me, but a friend of a friend. I was down at Fort Bragg visiting my buddy before he got out of the army. We ended up grilling with some of his army buddies, beers flowing, bocce ball flying, good people all around. At some point, one of the guys starts telling this absolutely wild story about a freaky chick he hooked up with once. I swear, the way he told it, it deserved to be immortalized on video. It would be YouTube gold, no doubt. So not gonna do it justice, but it went something like this. I was living in a drug house at the time, so we got a pretty interesting crowd there. There was this one hot chick that came by one time, and we were all getting high and drunk, and she and I ended up making out and going back to her place. Things get hot and heavy, and I focus my attention to her. After what must have been half an hour, she tells me to go into her closet, to the black duffel bag, and pick out whatever I wanted. I go in there, and there is this huge, I'm talking hockey-sized, duffel bag, and inside it is nothing but toys. So what do? But I pull out the largest, blackest dong that I can find, and I take it back and start using it on her. We were doing this for a while, and then I throw aside the dong and do it myself. We were doing it for a little while, and then she pulls out some razor blades and told me to use it. I can be done if you don't use it, she said. I was a bit freaked out by it, but I was pretty screwed up at this time, and it was probably the best bang that I had ever had, so I was more open-minded than I might have been, had this came out much earlier on. I said screw it and grabbed one, and just did as I was told. I let her use it a few times on me. It was this wet, sticky mess of sweat and smoothie. It was amazing. Again, I'm not doing it justice. I don't remember enough of the details that made it the amazing story that it was. When he was telling it, we were all dying laughing. I figured I should at least share it with the few people that might see it here. Story 27. When I was 19, I was just getting into the party scene. I found a party house with some guys only slightly older than me on a drunken trip to McDonald's from my, at the time, bang buddy's house. About 6 months passed, as I was hanging out at this house constantly. We started a ritual of going to Taco Bell for late-night drunk munchies because, why the hell not? After another month or so, I noticed a woman working there who I hadn't seen before. I see her 2 weeks after the initial meeting, and I'm drunk enough that I decide to hit on it. The conversation is sloppy, but I realize I am to come back at around 4 in the morning so I can go back to her place. At this point, I did not know she was 36. I went back to her place on the first 8th weekend, without error. Had fun. Got drunker than I was when I met her after work. Got to have plenty of banging. It was awesome. Then the night came when I was a little too drunk for my own good. This mother, yep, she had a daughter 3 years younger than me, knew how drunk I was, and decided to bring out the, I don't want to say baggage, I want to say fantasy truths. She showed me pictures of her and her previous masters and her previous servers, super BD insanity. However, my drunk mind is going, hey, we haven't tried this before. Q5 a.m., 19-year-old me at 130 pounds has been through at least 24 beers in the past 4 hours, at most. She decides to talk me into her crazy BD shenanigans. I agree because, screw it, why not, right? Well, the word bloodletting happened. Before I know it, my drunk self is now convincing the silver of sanity and sobriety that I have to just try it. So, I do. I demand another drink. She only lets me have one hand to chug another beer. Her words, chug it or you get none. If you fail partway through, I'm going to paddle your dong. What do? I chug the frigging beer. Another 30 minutes goes by as she's drawing something. I've talked her into a cigarette or two by then, and she seems to be artfully crafting something. Little did I know it was the art she was to perform on me with a Jason the frigging serial killer butcher knife. I hope you're ready, she said before giving me 4 to 5 seconds of seeing the knife before she started her drawing. I was panicking and was seeing myself leave my body. That was the most messed up act I've been involved in. Don't go banging 36-year-old women who work at Taco Bell, or you could end up with a really messed up 5-scar story. Story 28. Here's one of my best stories. I was 21, visiting a buddy in Tampa to check out the dance clubs. At the hotel bar, I met an older woman, maybe around 50, and we started chatting. When we left to catch the shuttle to the clubs, I suddenly turned to my buddy and said, "Wait here," then ran back to the bar to get her number. She made me save it under Grandmama because, as she put it, that's what all the kiddies call me. She and I texted a bit while I was at Mons Venus, and she decided to meet us out. We met up there, and she brought us across the street to some place called Apollo, something or other. She paid our cover, bought us drinks, even paid for some dances. After that, we headed to Blue Mondays or something like that. It's been 7 years. While we were there, I decided I was making my move. I invited her back to the hotel. In the cab, she tells me, "What you see is not what you get." I reassure her, "Don't worry, you're beautiful." But she keeps repeating it. When we get out at the hotel, she sits me down and says it again. "What you see is not what you get." At that point, I'm just thinking, fine, anything to get laid. We get to the room, and she says it again. "What you see is not what you get." I had breast cancer and just had a double mastectomy. They rebuilt my chesticles using fat from my butt. I get my nips put on in 2 weeks. Okay. You said her beautiful, I tell her. We get into bed, and I'm giving it my all. I want her to feel beautiful. Her shirt comes off, and she's right. No nips. Then, like something straight out of a movie, her wig starts to slip. She rips it off and tosses it in the corner like a champ. Wow. She had to be up at 7 for a meeting, so I vowed to stay awake until she fell asleep and then make my escape. Of course, after a long night of drinking, I passed out and didn't wake up until her alarm went off. I gathered all my clothes, slipped out into the hallway to get dressed, and then sprinted back to my room. I think I even called her a few times drunk in college, just to prove this story was real. Ugh. I still have nightmares about those nipless butt tits. Story 29. I met a girl at a music festival. A friend of a friend. My friend T is a lesbian and dates a girl named C. Together, they have a friend named H. After the first day of the 3-day festival, we headed back to the house for drinks. T and C disappeared into the shower together, while H and I started getting busy in the kitchen. When the shower freed up, we moved there. I was banging her from behind, with my left arm wrapped around her neck. She was really into that kind of rough stuff. She started digging her nails into my thigh, hard enough to draw a little blood. Then I noticed she was choking, her head tilted straight up under the shower head. The little gasps she managed sounded less like breaths and more like sips of water. So, I started hitting her in the back to help get her to get that water out of her lungs, but I kept banging her while doing it. After she caught her breath, I took her into the guest room and pretty much ate her back door. When I was done, I walked out to wash off. Tane and C were in the hallway just staring. They looked into my eyes and saw it was true. I have no soul. She said it was the best bang she ever had. Story 30. In regular life, I'm just your typical manly guy. But sometimes, I dress up as a big, sparkly furry dog and give everyone hugs. In that mode, anyone can grind on me while dancing, and I fully embrace being slutty. I hook up with girls, guys, other furries, and even multiples. I catch fursuit crushes easily, especially when the suit is their self and I haven't seen their human form. I always ask about safe, intimate relations and stay on top of frequent testing. Girls who chase furries? They get freaky. And their roommates? Freakier. I'm one of those furries, but most aren't, so please be nice and don't accuse them of being dirty just because they're furries. I'm more about hugs and cuddling than dirtiness anyways, so I keep corn away from my personal profiles, and there aren't any pics of my fursuit with sexy bits showing at this time. You can only have that in person. Story 31. I'll just go ahead and call this the best experience of my life. It was back in high school. I was a sophomore. I met this girl who was sitting all alone during lunch. Somehow, I managed to get her to talk to me. We started chatting and realized we had something in common. We both loved metal. She was gorgeous. Your typical depressed goth girl. We ended up going to her place. Her room was lit with red candles, decorated with pentagrams and band flags. It looked amazing. I'd always been more into thrash metal, but she introduced me to Cradle of Filth, and I've loved them ever since. Anyway, we're alone, and I start getting excited. I guess she picked up on that. She puts on Black Goddess Rises by Cradle and we start making out. Then we were banging. Midway through, she bites my neck. Hard. And it was the greatest feeling ever. Then she starts talking like she's turning into a werewolf. Weird as hell, but I was into it. It kept going like that until she stopped, opened her drawer, and pulled out a knife. I was a little freaked, but at that point, I was all hers. I didn't care. I'd never felt anything so intense. Most people would have been weirded out, but for me, it was glorious. I'd never felt my heart pound like that. After that day, I saw her a few times around school but kept my distance. I started regretting what happened, and then one day she just disappeared. I never saw her again. Now, 6 years later, I still think about her. Banging has never felt the same. That night left a mark, literally and emotionally. I've never experienced anything like it since. Story 32. Unfortunately, not an act I went through with, but something messed up that happened to me. I met this girl one wild night in Liverpool. She was a student, living in shared digs in the city, and we excitedly headed back to her place. She was a cute 18 or 19-year-old brunette with those adorable hamster cheeks. I've always loved on girls. We got back to her room and went straight to it, clothes off, into bed, and onto the good foot to do the bad thing. Afterward, we cuddled and chatted for a bit until things started heating up again. Round 2 was underway when she suddenly stopped, pushed me off, and jumped out of bed with this gleeful burst of energy. She rummaged through a drawer at the bottom of her wardrobe, and after a moment pulled out this massive black dong, looking back at me with the wide-eyed, giddy anticipation of a schoolgirl. I was shocked, to say the least. I shook my head slowly and said, a bit awkwardly, "That's not really my kind of thing. Sorry." She looked absolutely heartbroken, like I'd just shattered her world. "I think I should probably go," I said. I got up, put my clothes on, gave her a quick kiss, and left without looking back. To this day, I still wonder if it was a narrow escape or a missed opportunity. Either way, it was definitely an experience. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.